I'm also with Chef's Corner on Northumberland 89.7. I have a weekly show on there with Chef Michael as well, and a variety of other co-hosts that come on. Local people, and not just chefs, everybody and anybody. So I'm really happy to be able to be here, and I'd like to thank Judy for inviting me out to come and do a couple of classic fall dishes for everyone today. So I guess we can get started. The first dish I'm going to be doing for you is a very classic Russian borscht soup. And because we're getting into that time of season, we've got this bounty of local beets and cabbage and onions and all those sort of root vegetables. It's a wonderful way to bump up your system for the fall, heading into the fall. I know some of you maybe are suffering with colds and flus and little oncoming things, and this is a great way to do it. There's lots of anti-cancer fighting things in beets, even though we don't eat them as much as we should. They're really good for boosting your stamina. They're anti-cancer, they're rich in nutrients, fiber, all that wonderful, wonderful stuff. So after I do the little cooking demo here, everyone's going to get a chance to try some borscht soup, and maybe I can reintroduce you to it with the fall being here. So, okay? Now, if I can get this set up so I can work and talk. I think.
You'd rather have the big bite, you can have that.
I don't want it on my head. There we go. Is that better? I'm going to be kind of leaning over. Can everyone hear me still? Great. Okay. Whoa, this is like multitasking at its best. So, Russian borscht soup, originally is from Russia, of course, even though maybe some of us have been doing it here for years, cooking it. And it's very simple ingredients. I like to also use up whatever's sort of in the fridge. Today I've got some celery, you can add celery. There's a variety of recipes out there you can use. Just Google them if you need and put in whatever you'd like. The one I'm doing today is vegetarian based, so I'm using a vegetable stock, but you can do it with beef stock or beef bones. And the great thing about that is last year there was this whole big kick on cooking with bones. And local bones, if you can get them from your local beef farmers, that just is knowing where your food is coming from, obviously, and makes it a little bit nicer if you're going to be cooking with the marrow and the bones, and it does add extra nutrients into the soups. Okay. First things first, garlic. Love garlic. Cannot get enough garlic. Now, I happen to have with me a very handy-dandy trusted thing. If you're lucky enough to get your hands on one of these, it is a Pampered Chef garlic press. These things are amazing because all you have to do is stick the garlic clove in here and close it, and it comes out perfectly. And then there's none of that mess. Now, if you are doing it your old-fashioned way, you can always smash it with your knife and chop it up a little bit and put it in the pot. The main thing is having garlic in there. Then we're going to want a little bit of onion. So you're basically starting with your basic, stock, stuff going in for your stock, your celery, your carrots, your onions. Oh, and I just want to say that at the end of this cooking demo, someone's going to get a chance to win a Northumberland and Chef's Corner apron. There is something underneath someone's chair here. I'm not sure where Judy put it. So, there you go. It will be a surprise. So, the interesting thing is when we went first to Northumberland 89.7 and talked to them about doing a cooking show on air, on radio, they kind of looked at us and were like, what? How are you going to do a cooking show on air, on live radio? And actually, it's worked out pretty good. We've had some guests that brought in their Actifry and cooked things up in that, and then we tasted them on air, and then anybody else coming in, you know, got to have a little snack. And it's actually given us a chance to highlight Northumberland's agriculture, food, and culinary and restaurant industry. And because I don't think they had a voice before that was sort of out there for them, and an opportunity for them to come on. We've had Cam Davidson, one of the big organizers of Fall Fest, and of course the Port Hope Fall Fair. We had him on the radio the other day. Gives them an opportunity to give an outlet to the community and let everyone know. So that's good. Okay, so we got some garlic, we got a bit of onions. We've forgotten the olive oil, Judy. Do we have olive oil? That'll work. Okay, canola works if you've got it. My suggestion to everyone is go out and invest in some really good olive oil. Don't buy the stuff that's just at the grocery store. Go to a health food store. Talk to the health food person that's in there and go through. There'll be a variety. They're going to be a little more expensive, but in the long run, it's worth it. If you're making a salad, you want to be able to taste that oil and not have that weird taste to it, that really over-processed taste. So investing in a good olive oil and paying the $20, $25 for a decent bottle, you just need a little bit. If you're doing a nice salad and you just want to mix up a quick vinaigrette with some lemon and olive oil, a few fresh herbs in there and pour it over, it makes a huge, huge difference. So I'm actually going to get this going so we can smell this. Okay, so that's what this cooking thing is all about. Should be good. This will work when we get there. Okay, so I like to personally, once I've got the onions, garlic going, these are some of my dried bay leaves from home. I like to saute them off and put them in early. Some people will hold off and put their herbs in later, which you can always retweak with fresh herbs. If you've got dried herbs, that's fine as well. I was just speaking the other day on the show as well. It's that time of year, we're all changing seasons, right? And we're changing our clothing. It's time to change up your cupboards. If you've had spices and things that are sitting there for a while, get rid of them, you know, either that or cook them all up. You know, switch it up for the winter and get prepared. I'm actually going to do a whole show on being prepared in the winter. You know, when the power goes out, now what do? You know, you've got your barbecue, I guess, and few things. Just a bit of fresh oregano I'm putting in. Maybe some of you have fresh herbs in your garden already you can use up. Okay. So there you go. Pretty simple so far. It takes minutes. For those of you who have kids and your moms, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, maybe after you've had a chance to maybe get a nap just before the kids come home. You know, this is a really quick soup to throw together. And it can sit there and simmer. It needs to simmer for a while because the beets take quite a while to cook. Some people will shred them. I find that's a bit of an unnecessary step because they will just naturally cook down. So I just chop everything, cube it, do it that way. Okay. Celery we're going to put in there too. And again, however you feel good at cutting things up. You know, when you're in school, everything is actually measured with a ruler. Believe it or not, your cuts. I like things rough cut, unless I'm really doing something very special. And a little bit of celery in there as well. There we go. We got some heat happening now in that pot. These are really great pots too. If you've got them, these Dutch oven pots, they're awesome to cook in. And again, some people with this borscht soup, if you've got dried mushrooms, I know there's recipes out there you can add dried mushrooms. You have to hydrate the mushrooms a little bit beforehand. in some warm water for about half an hour. If you've got, you want to use some shiitake or oyster mushroom, it does add a nice flavor to it. I didn't put any mushroom in this recipe today just because of a lot of mushroom allergies out there, so that's why I didn't do that. So we've got all that in there. It's very simple. Carrots. When you are preparing this recipe, it's really great. I've got a very big stock pot. I've already made ahead over there. Make a big batch. Beets are really plentiful. They're very cheap right now. They're very inexpensive. Cabbage is very inexpensive. The farmers markets are loaded with them. And you can use a variety of beets. It doesn't have to just be the natural, the regular red beet that most people are familiar with. There's a lot of heirloom beets that are coming out. Golden beets are nice as well. Maybe the kids will eat it if they don't see it so pink, but it's still good. Okay. All right, it's doing what I want it to do now. You smell that? Yeah. Maybe going this way though. So, with the bay leaf and the oregano, thyme, any other herbs that you're familiar with, I mean, my style of cooking is, the recipe is there for you as a general outline. I'm sure some of you have recipes that have been handed down to you over the years. Feel free to use them and tweak them. Cooking has got to be fun, it's got to be nutritious, and the whole reason for cooking with herbs is, of course, to add that packed value in to what you are cooking. Bay leaf is really good because it aids in digesting food, so it helps with the whole thing going down and happening. So yeah, variety of herbs. So this is going to cook up a bit more. We can also add in a bit of tomato. If you're in a hurry, you can use a canned diced tomato. There's nothing wrong with that at all. And I put it in seeds and all. Tomatoes are plentiful this year. They're rich in antioxidants as well. There's been a big kick this year on heirloom tomatoes and growing heirloom vegetables. That's really nice to see. So hopefully that trend will continue. We're very fortunate here in Northumberland to have all of this agriculture and farming that's right at our fingertips. This is a good soup to use those cans of tomatoes in your cupboard, or anything sitting in your cupboard. Any soup is good this time of year. I'll just take that right over, toss it in. There we go. A little action happening there. And that. And then the next step is very simple, is tossing your beef. I'm not measuring things. We don't have to always measure things. I know recipes are there for a reason. Now when you're baking, there's a difference. When you're baking, you really absolutely should follow the recipe because there's specific portions to lard and fat or butter or whatever you're putting in. When you're cooking, you can take a little bit of liberty with that. So don't be afraid to, don't go measuring out your vegetables. So I'm going to use a few cups. This is a little pot. In that big pot, I probably used cup-wise, I'd say, not that I really counted, a good half a bag beets. Put about 10 cups of beets in there and cook it down. So we got our beets in here. And then The next thing is your stock. If you're fortunate and you have enough time to be able to make your own veggie stocks, the odds and sods of things that you can keep, your garlic pieces, onions, specifically carrots. You can roast that all off in the oven. First, roast it off in the oven, and then you can add that to just water. You can put salt and pepper in it if you want, and you can just boil that for a couple of hours. You don't have to do a big pot. And then just strain it out, put some thyme in it, a little bit of whatever other spices you've got around, and then strain that out. Cool it, put it in some sealer jars for yourself, or you can freeze it in Ziploc bags when it's cold, and keep it in the fridge or the freezer, and then you can pull that out and add it instead of going and buying stuff. But I know we don't all have that kind of leisure in that time, so for today's purpose, I will be using this. And then vegetable stock. Now beef stock, if you're using a beef bone, this is about the time it would be going in as well once you've got your stock and your water in there. Beef adds a little different dimension to it using a beef stock. So if you're a meat lover and you've had a nice roast beef, you can also chop up the beef if you want to put it in along with the bone. Okay, so that's about as difficult as it gets, folks. I am going to add a little bit of potato, just to give it a little bit more body to it. You don't have to. I'm going to probably put a little bit more stock in there. And pretty soon you'll see that color start to, change. Nowadays at the store as well, you can get those little bouillon, not the cubes, but they're like little gelatin. It's like a condensed chicken stock and beef stock. Those are really nice. Those are really handy if you're going camping, or they're good to just have in the pantry. They don't take up a lot of room. Okay. Got that going on. I'm just going to cover that and try and get that up to a bit of a boil. Meanwhile, we'll get a potato in there.
Daughter
then we're going to have some sampling coming up on that. I've also made some peach crisp today for everybody to try with some ice cream. It's so simple to do that. Like, crisp is just one of those easy, quick things. Just like this. Tomato there. Toss that in. When you're doing a soup, you have to think of, or anything for that matter, when it comes to like cooking, and I'm sure most of you are familiar with it, you have to think about your cooking times and how long something's going to take to cook. And I don't know how many times that I've even worked with first cooks who are putting this on in front of that or ahead of this or that, and it's kind of like, wait a minute, that's going to take a half an hour. This is only going to take 15 minutes. So beets are really hard. They take a long time to cook, way longer than carrots or potatoes, or cabbage for that matter. So that's why I put the beets in first. Get them going. So what you would do if you were doing this at home now, you've got this in, you've got your potatoes in, and you just walk away and you forget about it for about a half an hour, 40 minutes on the stove, leave it alone, let it boil, reduce it down, do a little simmer. All those flavors are coming together. Salt and pepper to taste. You know, some people are on low sodium diets, so you don't have to add the salt in there. So it's just according to whatever you need. Then the very last part of this is our wonderful cabbage. Don't be afraid of cabbage. Cabbage is really great for cabbage rolls too, but especially good in this. Cabbage soup, cabbage and potato soup is good. Cabbage, any kind of soup, throw a bit of cabbage in. Cabbage is one of those things too that a little piece of saran over it, toss it in the fridge. It's there literally a week later, and it really hasn't done anything. It hasn't went bad. It hasn't, it's one of those root vegetables that we don't get to have root cellars anymore necessarily, but again, kind of a handy thing to have around as a cabbage. So if you're fortunate enough and you hit the farmers markets early enough, by all means try and get whatever you can locally. A lot of the produce at the grocery stores right now is coming in local, from the area. A lot of the local grocery stores are working with the local agriculture, farming and farmers to get their produce into the store. So, so a lot of times you just got to look at the labels, and at least if it's grown in Ontario, that's always nice. I'm sure everybody kind of tries to shop and buy and do local as much as we can. All right, you've got your cabbage. There's a couple ways you can do it. You can just nick off this bottom part, and then you can just start slicing it. You can take the time and core it. That would be more pertinent if you were making cabbage rolls and kind of picking off the leaves. You want to have it cored so that the leaves will come off better. But for our purposes today, we're just going to use a little bit. Just simply slicing it works great. You want to work with a flat surface whenever you're cutting something that's big and bulky, like a watermelon or any of that. Even with the watermelon, give a little quick cut to the bottom of the watermelon somewhere where you can set it down and at least it's not rolling all over. Or don't be afraid to put it on a cloth or a tea towel or something like that. Good sharp knife helps. I was surprised to find that about a month ago, blowing through my neighborhood in Coburg, I hear this old-fashioned ding, 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 ding ring of the bell. So one of the little kids I was around said, "Oh, ice cream." It wasn't ice cream. It was a knife sharpener who had come up all the way from Niagara. All the way up from Niagara, and that was the first time in all my years of being in Coburg that I'd ever seen a knife sharpener, a gentleman driving around in his truck. I mean, I think you still get it in Toronto, but yeah. So again, try at the very bottom. You're going to end up with a bit of core. You don't necessarily want that in there. You can kind of cut around that. Cabbage is so sweet, it's so nice, it's so one of those underutilized vegetables that we often pass up. And you know what? Budget-wise, you can't beat it. And like I said, it lasts in the fridge forever. And it makes good cabbage rolls. And all kinds of other good dishes. So, the whole cabbage depending on how many you're cooking for. I tend to do things in large pots. So we've got our beets in here, we've got our celery, our onions, some garlic, a little bit of carrot, a little bit of potato, some bay leaf, oregano, some thyme, again, whatever herbs you feel comfortable with. And I don't know if you can see this now, but it's starting to come up to that beautiful color. And it still needs to, I would probably boil that, even a pot that size, again, for about at least a half an hour when it comes up to temp, so that the beets need to really soften up a bit before you add the cabbage. The cabbage is almost like the last step. So for all intent and purposes today, this is already cooked. It's been boiling, boiling on the stove. The beets are tender when you put a little fork in there. And then at that point, you can just toss in your cabbage, few cups, whatever's going to sort of get that soup happening. Again, give it a little bit of a stir. And then I might leave that go for a few more minutes and then just shut the burner off and walk away. That's it. Dinner's done. You get a good crusty bread to go with that. You can sour cream. You can use sour cream. That's a classic way of going with it. Or you can do the good old-fashioned creme fraiche, which is, just leaving your cream out and letting it do its thing and ferment. So there you go. Here's your borscht soup. It's that simple. Thank you. We have we've got samples for everybody, right?
That's right, we have lots of samples. I want to thank everybody for coming this afternoon and listening to our cooking demonstration, and thanks Chef Michelle.
Oh, you're welcome.
It's interesting to watch professionals who know how to treat their knives properly, and all of us these days are trying to eat a little better, so this recipe is going to go a long way they've done that. It's good to see the fresh vegetables. One thing that I would like to tell you about this afternoon, we have a presence with the Fair Share food bank. So by all means come along and check out their table and see what's happening with that. This picture beside me of the cockerel, the rooster, is going to be a silent auction for the benefit of the Fair Share food bank. So if you're interested at all in putting in a bid, I have a page there ready for it. We also, I want to remind you, have cooking demonstrations and cooking workshops going on all weekend. Tomorrow afternoon we will have a chef from The Social, and